pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda? No. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Make a motion, we accept the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes, August the 8th and September the 4th. Any changes, corrections, deletions, additions to this two sets of minutes? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of August 8th and September 4th as submitted.
I'm looking for, I'll make the motion, but I couldn't, I hit it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any- okay. Public comment?
Everybody,
Mike?
there's no mic, but I guess I will talk very loud.
Okay.
Hi,
You're not the one on the
Susan
board
Zimmett.
that needs the mic.
What?
You're not the one that needs the mic.
I know, I think they're locked up. So anyway, Susan Zimmett, Supervisor of the Town of New Paltz. I want to just come share some emails that I would like to put into the minutes and give a little background on them. So what I'd like to say is that on Saturday, this past Saturday, I had gotten up early and had gone over to the SOS, the Survival of the Shangam, for the young kids over at Moriello Pool. And that was at 8 o'clock. It was wonderful. It was a great event, really terrific. And when I returned home, you can't hear me?
Now,
Talk
yeah,
loud.
just-
Okay.
that's okay, Susan.
When I returned home about 10 o'clock, I had a text from someone from the Hudson Valley Area Labor Federation. And what the text said was, Susan, what's going on in New Paltz? How many jobs are going to be lost when you close down the New Paltz Police Department and you give all the jobs over to the state troopers? So I texted back and said, what are you talking about? And is this what you're hearing? And I was texted back, yes. I was about to pick up the phone and call the person from the Hudson Valley Area Labor Federation, but my phone rang. It was a call from the executive director for the state in Albany from the Central Labor Council saying, Susan, what is going on down in New Paltz? I said, you got me. I said, but, there's a caucus on Monday night, and it's political time, and, God knows, but once again, the police card, I guess, is being played. Quite frankly, it's getting pretty old, okay? As a county legislator, you could talk to Frank Politico, who heads up the Urgent team. That probably the county legislator, I was the greatest supporter of Urgent and funding them and making sure that they've stayed in existence. I fund them as a town supervisor. I have great relations with the New Paltz Police Department. There is no truth whatsoever to any of these rumors about me getting rid of the police department. As a matter of fact, the day before the rumor came out, I was in negotiations with my team and the chair of the police commission, negotiating a contract on behalf of the New Paltz Police Department. It was a great negotiation. We talked about what really mattered and what we need to do and got down to the hard facts and said, how do we do this together? And we're working together on what will be hopefully a fair and equitable contract for the taxpayers and for the New Paltz Police. But, of course, being that there was a caucus on Monday night, we weren't going to let this stand and get it all over the town that Susan Zimmett was getting rid of the New Paltz Police Department, So I ended up calling Anthony Safaro, the head of the state PBA, and said, Anthony, you need to call up the Central Labor Council. He said, not a problem, Susan. Give me the name, give me the number, I'll make the phone call. I then called I called Dan Carpinelli, who's the chair of the New Paltz PBA, who I have a phenomenal relationship with, and told him what was going on. He said, Susan, this is crazy. Would you like a statement from me? And I said, yes. And what Dan sent me was, at 11:14 on Saturday, September 7th, from Dan Carpinelli to Susan Zimmett. Susan, I would just like to take a moment and thank you for making negotiations on our contract a pleasant meeting towards working on a common goal. I would also like to put down any rumors that may have risen about you as supervisor attempting to do away with our agency and any replacement with a state agency. Thank you again, Dan Carpinelli, PBA President. I also spoke with the Chief of Police, who received a phone call from the union asking him what was going on, and the chief asked me if he could send a statement, and he wrote at 11:15 at night on September 7th, after he got home for a family reunion, "Supervisor, I would like to address a rumor that apparently was circulated earlier today in regard to an alleged statement by you that you are going to eliminate our local police department and turn over police coverage to the state police. I have not heard anything like this, nor have I been advised by any of my members that you've stated anything in this regard. We have had a great working relationship, and you've been supportive to our agency, as well as being mindful to the safety of our community. We recently met with the members of the board and the union in regard to contract negotiations, and during that time, it was productive, and there were no conversations about limiting our agency or even reducing manpower. I look forward to continuing to move forward in the negotiation process, as well as continued service to our community. Respectfully, Joe Schneider, Chief of Police." So I'm here tonight, A, to put this into the record, and to assure the public that probably come November, I think election time might be November 5th, so I suspect maybe November 1st, November 2nd, you will probably hear this rumor once again that Susan Zimmerman is trying to get rid of the police department, and I might not have the time to be able to respond and put the rumor to bed. So I am here tonight, putting into the minutes, backup from the PBA president, backup from the chief, and backup from everybody else, and myself right here. New Paltz Police is fine. They will be here. They will be here for a long time. And end of story, find another rumor and another card to play for election. Thank you very much. And I'd like this in the minutes.
Any other comments? No? Okay. Chief report.
Start out with some commendations. Well, first of all, no complaints against any of our personnel were lodged in the month of August, and there were no defensive action reports lodged in the month of August. We have 7 commendation letters. The first, it was written by Sheriff Van Blarkum in regards to our participation in service as part of the Ulster County's Urgent Task Force. In particular, Officer Calvin Halstead, who has been assigned the Urgent Task Force for approximately the last year or so. Back in 2011 and 2012, Urgent conducted an undercover operation along with the District Attorney's Office, New York State Police CNET, and the Kingston Police Department's drug unit. And their operation resulted in the arrest of over 100 individuals for the sale of narcotics. And this was a letter of appreciation for our effort and our participation with the Urgent Task Force. There was a letter from a resident expressing appreciation for the efforts made by Officers Knoth, Fuco, and Recruit Lloyd at a recent suspicious person call in one of the in the Cherry Hill neighborhood. This resident just wanted to thank the officers for their response, and also thank the chief for the efforts that the department has made to addressing some of the concerns of the members who live in that neighborhood. There was a card that we received from a resident thanking Sergeant Bunce for his assistance in installing a child passenger safety seat at the station. We have 2 technicians that are certified in the proper installation of child passenger safety seats, Sergeant Bunce and Officer Quigley, and this is a service that we provide from the community. We will inspect seats, we will install them properly for parents, and if the seats are defective, we will actually replace those seats with proper looking seats.
That was a great letter, by the way.
Yeah.
Found it very touching. Yeah.
Wait, so how, if you're a parent and you have a car seat that you can't get into your car, you are welcome just to come to the police station, or you call the police? Like, how does that work exactly?
What we would suggest doing is calling, and they can either speak with Officer Quigley or Sergeant Bunce. We are, this month in September, we will be sending one other police officer to the child passenger safety seat training course. So then we'll have 3 technicians that are certified. And again, some people stop in, and luck of the draw, the officers are there. If not, they can call, they can speak with the officer, leave a voicemail with the officer. If not, make an appointment with them to come in at a time and have their seat installed properly. The officers will prior to even installing it, they'll inspect it and make sure that the seat is adequate and meets up to the current standards and codes. And if not, we'll replace that seat with one that we have, and then we will install that one properly. This is all part of a grant that we received from New York State.
So you just have like extra car
We have
seats there?
seats that we have on premise that we can use to replace any defective seats that we find during the installation and the inspection. And we also run periodic checks throughout the year. We're going to be participating in September. We will participate in the Hudson Valley Family Woodstock Touch a Truck event at the Ulster County Fairgrounds, and these officers will be out there doing a safety seat installation checkpoint out there as
Great.
well. The next, this is an email that was sent from the chief to officers Bunce, Misery, James, and Bolson. He received a phone call from a parent, wanted to commend them on their professionalism and the way they handled a situation with their son. They thought that the officers just went above and beyond and did an excellent job with how they handled themselves and how they handled the situation. We have another letter. It's actually a copy of the email from the chief to Teresa Hart and Officer Joe Judge. In this instance, Teresa was working as a dispatcher, which she does on occasion on the weekends. And this resident wanted to thank them for the care that they, and the professionalism and the care that they gave an elderly woman in regards to an injured deer that was on her property. I just wanted to thank them for that particular instance and all the efforts that we've made. Another phone call, so this is a copy of the email that was sent from the chief to Officer Quigley. The chief received a phone call in regards to her assistance of an elderly woman who was locked out of her vehicle, and the assistance that Breanne provided in unlocking it. And then I believe this last one is a copy of an email. It was from Dispatcher Benjamin. She actually fielded a phone call from a resident who wanted to express gratitude for Officer Cisco, Rob Cisco, for assisting he and his wife with their disabled vehicle, and just show their appreciation. And that is it in regards to commendations.
Yeah, other?
Nope, unless you want me just to review the rest of the matters that are on here. I don't
Yeah.
know what is that what we
He
normally
usually
do?
goes over defensive action.
There are no
But
defensive action.
Do you have questions?
No, just a couple comments.
Okay.
But I figured somebody else does, I'll let them go first.
I have comments too, but you can go first.
Oh, you can go first, ladies first. I'm an old-fashioned,
Okay. Are we doing comments on the whole report?
on whatever you want to do, whatever
chief's
you want to
report.
talk about on the report.
That includes everything in the pack.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. My first question is, what is the standard protocol if somebody gets their keys locked in their car? I know that we have a locksmith on the corner of North Chestnut and Main Street. This person was at the post office when their keys got locked in the car. And I think it's great that you guys help people with the keys and you're there for them. I think it's very, very important. But I'm wondering if somebody is across the street from where we have a professional locksmith that works there from 9 to 6 o'clock, Monday through Saturday, I wonder why maybe we should encourage residents to have a locksmith help them out so that we can leave our police officers free in case we have emergencies or problems.
What I can say is that in regards to that, we will handle lockouts only if calls for service permit. We will not remain on a lockout if an emergency call comes in. It's a service that we provide free of charge, and we feel that it's a good thing.
It is.
To my knowledge, Mr. Hasbrook, who owns Allied Locksmith, has had no issue with that, to my knowledge. If he has not expressed that to me at least. Maybe he has to Chief Schneider or anybody else. I don't know if that is even an issue with him. But it's a free service that we provide, and we do prioritize. It doesn't affect how we respond to emergency calls in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. And then I had a more general question about the full report. I don't know. I think you could probably answer it. I was looking at the overtime from this past month as opposed to the month before, as opposed to the month before that. And it really stuck out to me that there's certain officers that are always doing the overtime, and they probably have more time, so they want to do overtime. But is there any kind of a limit to how many hours we allow our officers to work? I mean, is
We
it
will not
cut
allow-
off at a certain point?
We will not allow an officer to work more than 16 consecutive hours.
16?
Yeah, we will not allow them to work more than 16 consecutive hours. Other than that, not really. I mean, we will look at the overtime, we'll look at where they are and how much they have worked, but no, there really are no limits. The overtime is, depending upon the type of overtime that you see, if it's shift coverage overtime, we do that on a rotational basis. We have a list, and it's just a matter of who accepts it. And there are officers who take more overtime than others. When I was a patrol officer, I took any and all overtime that I possibly could. Some officers take none. They don't want it, and others take as much as they possibly can get. And then in regards to other overtime, for example, and not knowing specifically what you're talking about, dispatchers, we rotate their overtime. But again, as I said a couple months ago, we're still in the situation of limited personnel ready to work in communications. So there is still overtime shifts that need to be filled. So that is still an issue. And then again, there's court overtime, there's administrative overtime, there's training overtime. So I'm not exactly sure what you're keying on, or just general over, the general number, or the total number.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Amy, for the lockout, that was a question that I had when I first started. And I think both Ira and I sat down and we looked at what the cost of was for lockout. I think it was like 19. It was some
about $1.50.
$1.50 to do it. And I think, as you said, they prioritize them. So if they're like in the middle of a robbery or
Well, listen, I mean,
whatever,
I
they
think it's
don't-
terrific if
they don't
somebody's
do it. But I
locked
had the
out and they
same-
need to get into the car. It's just when I see the Hasbrook sitting there and I see people getting locked out, behind where, Yanni's restaurant is, for example, and it's right there. Sometimes I think maybe they should just go to our neighborhood locksmith, but
That
that's
was
just
our
my personal
complaint.
feeling.
You're right, that was our complaint about the lockouts, is because we're taking business away from the locksmith.
Yep.
But if the locksmith doesn't care, that's fine. I mean, but like you say, if you're across the street from the locksmith, I'm sorry, pay you $20.
I don't even think he charges 20.
I don't know, I'm just saying that's what it cost me when I had a lockout, Not here, but, some other place. But no, you're right. I mean, but again, if the car's going by anyway and it's $1.50, it's good, the chief says, it's a good community service. It's not hurting
Sure.
anything.
Sure.
Did you?
Yes, a couple of things I wanted to say. As of the August 2013 report, the chief is roughly $162,000 on the budget. Now, as I always qualify it, every time I say there's a lot of the expenses don't really hit until the end of the year. But he's on track for another large saving over the year, as he has every other year. I mean, I can't speak for any other department, but we know that the chief keeps a tight control on his budget to make sure it doesn't get out of hand, and he doesn't go over, and he doesn't need money transferred from other places. I mean, basically, we get a lot of money in, and he keeps the particular budget right down. And the other point I want to make out is, which I'll get a little further into when we get into the business. I'm seeing a lot of complaints floating all over the place, and hearing a lot of complaints that the police department doesn't do much for the village, that they don't care about, that there's no foot patrols, that nobody walks, nobody does, and all they do is ride around, which we'll get into later. Just for the general public, in August, foot patrol is up 100%. And that's in the village, because they don't do foot patrol anywhere else. On the B line, it's up 100%. On the C line, it's up slightly, a couple of hours. course, on the D line, which is specifically for the bars, in this particular case, it wasn't necessary to use the specialized line because of all the other foot patrols had done. So all these people who are there yelling that that the police aren't doing it, they're not walking, that they're, before you make statements, you should really check your information.
Really should.
Huh?
Yeah, you really should.
One of the things I will bring up later, there's a lot of misinformation that I have not responded to because I didn't think it's proper, but I will bring it up here because I think this is the proper place for it. And it has to do with this, maybe as, so it's political season, so everybody's attacking or whatever, but there's been a lot of misinformation floating around, a lot of bad information. And it's not fair, because unfortunately, what happens is people don't check anything. Somebody puts, well, they didn't do this. Well, maybe they didn't do this, or maybe they didn't sit in front of your house because they were arresting somebody at a bar. But that they don't bother to check. So I just wanted the public to be aware that for the month of August, they have, and they do it every month when it's possible. It's got to be limited by the amount of personnel who's available. Yes, sir.
Just if I may, just to kind of piggyback on that, I know that there have been a couple meetings regarding noise in the village. We had one a few months ago, and I think we actually have one on next week. The officers have made a concerted effort, not only just with the foot patrols, but even with zero tolerance on the noise issues. Last week, or actually the week before last, we made in one night 9 arrests for unreasonable noise as a result of issues with for residents and phone calls in. Our officers are out there. We are making arrests when we can, and we are making that concerted effort. You'll see it in next month's packet, but we can talk about it here briefly. Is this past weekend we conducted an plainclothes detail addressing quality of life issues. We arrested approximately, I believe it's 61 or 62 people Saturday night and Sunday morning. Then the actual patrol shift on the night before, the Friday and the Saturday, without any additional personnel or supplemental personnel, arrested 18 individuals for various quality of life and noise complaint issues. So, we are out there. We understand what the community's concerns are, and we are making a concerted effort to try to address those with the personnel that we have.
I actually was talking to some of those neighbors, and they said that things have really been much more terrific than usual since the college went back in session, and they definitely noticed a difference. So, I just wanted to say that to you, that they could tell that you guys are really trying. And just to add on one thing, I know there was a tips class held last week. That was a new kind of tips class that addressed people that actually sell the beer in the containers in the convenience stores. And I just wanted to compliment you guys on that. I think it's really terrific that you're making that effort.
You'll actually see that in the monthly,
Yeah.
in next month's detective report. But we
Right.
did we did an underage detail.
That's really wonderful. It's great.
And then one of our officers is doing okay
Yes.
after
Yes.
foot patrol.
Yes.
He was
He encountered an individual actually for a violation of the open container, and fight ensued, and the individual was then taken into custody, but he did punch the officer. He is okay.
Okay, great. Any other questions on the chief's report? No? Thanks, Rob. Technology committee?
We had a meeting last month on the 14th at the police department with the principals of Steamboat Data, who are the vendors for Police Pro. We had some more questions for them and began to work with them on developing a cost-benefit analysis to be able to try to demonstrate, if needed, where there would be savings through better efficiency by using upgraded software and hardware. So that's still a work in progress. I did get an email from May Morales. She did some research, and I believe her conclusion was that our current hardware actually doesn't meet the minimum system requirements for the Trax 10. So I guess it's working, but maybe marginally, or for how long. And then we have a meeting tomorrow with another vendor, Cody Systems, and so we'll be interviewing them, finding out more about what they have to offer, pricing, et cetera.
Okay, great. Thank you guys.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're still interviewing police software?
We have one more to go,
Okay.
yeah.
And so what do you, they kind of fall in a ballpark of what they cost? Software alone?
Yeah, the chief was at a convention in Florida a couple months ago, and he had the opportunity to interview some vendors of software down there. One of the companies that he talked to, he just told me this yesterday, as a matter of fact, he tried to set up a meeting with them and then realized that they service much larger departments,
Okay.
that their software is much, much more expensive, in the several $100,000 range, for example, compared to Steamboat Data Systems, which came in, I think, just at under $50,000. And I don't know about the other company that we're meeting tomorrow, so we'll know that shortly.
Okay.
I just also wanted to add one more thing to my report, and that is that one of the things that we're trying to get an answer to has to do with the conversion of existing data into a new system. And it's a very individualized kind of a process. The people at Steamboat Data have really invested quite a bit of time on a gratis basis to try to let us know what would be involved in terms of time, money, and ease of conversion. So they've really gone out of their way to try to work with us on that. I would say that hopefully after the meeting tomorrow, we'll have a much better idea of what direction the police department would like to go into as far as selecting.
I would
a vendor.
think that any software vendor that's soliciting you would be able to also quote you on the cost of the transformations.
They don't always know, though. That's
They don't
that's part of the
always
problem. Because the system we're using now is quite old,
Right,
and it
right.
uses an old database, an early version of an old database. They sometimes have to develop special programming in order to transfer that. And at the meeting we had on the 14th, we actually went through some scenarios. We tried to find out more where the problems could be. You could transfer information, but it has to be accurate. You want everything to transfer.
Right.
You want everything to be usable in the new system. So on one level, it seems like it's something that they should be capable of doing and used to doing, but it could be a little bit more complicated than that.
Maybe it wouldn't be convertible because the new system, hopefully, is going to be a significant upgrade. So then we have an issue. Right? We have an
Of having an old system and a new system, is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah. And so, is there a possibility that they could run old system and new system if a conversion were, say, like,
Yeah.
either because of these two different forms of data that you have,
Right.
if it's going to be like totally outrageous price-wise or really complicated because if the integrity of the data is in any way threatened, you don't want to make that conversion. So that maybe we need to consider running two. And would we be able, I don't know if this is possible, it's not my opinion, where they would be able to, from their desktop, access
Either one.
Either one.
It's a good question, and we try to address that. The consensus seemed to be that running an old version and a new version is something that should be avoided at all costs, just because of the confusion. The people from Steamboat Data didn't think it would be impossible to make the conversion. They didn't even think it would be necessarily difficult to make the conversion. They just needed more information about the structure of the database that the current system is using. And so they're working directly with May, because she understands that a whole lot better than I do, for sure. And it sounds like they're making progress, just based on a couple of emails that I've gotten, that I've been copied on. between them. It sounds like they're making progress towards that. So I'm hoping that within a short period of time, certainly by the next commission meeting, that we would know exactly where we stand with the ability to make the conversions, have some comparative costs between different systems, and, be in a good position to hopefully move forward. Yeah.
Bruce, Gene asked the question last month about the vendors being
On stage.
qualified by the state bid.
Yeah.
Were you able to find any of that
We
information?
did, yeah, we did talk
Yeah.
about that. If the chief were here, he would know more than I would. But the answer they gave was a little bit equivocal. I don't know the exact process for being on state bid. Apparently, they have had an application in. They were a little bit uncertain as to what the status of the application was. They did say that if it would increase the chances of them making sales, not just with New Paltz, but any other state agency, that it's something they would follow through with.
Oh, they really should.
Yeah, so I guess it's partly an internal matter on their end. So we did address it, but I'm not sure what the final outcome of that was.
So if they're not on state bid, they can't compete for our service, or they can, or
It doesn't
just...
put them out of the running. It doesn't. It just means you have to have 3 comparable bids.
Right.
For apples to apples and oranges.
Yeah, so we'll have the second one, and we could get a third if we needed to.
Now, May didn't give you anything yet in terms of the equipment, did she?
She did.
Did she give you a leasing option?
We talked about leasing. We talked about several things, actually, to ease sort of the financial burden. One of the things that the people from Steamboat, that going back to the software, thought that we might be able to do was have them bill us in 2 different years. I'm not exactly sure how that would work, if it would work, if it makes sense for the town or for them. They don't get involved directly. They don't have a leasing program in place, a formal leasing program.
I'm talking about your hardware.
Yeah. As far as hardware, I think May was going to look into it again. She's thinking about Dell as a supplier, and I don't know whether Dell is directly involved in leasing or whether it has to be done through a third
Dell is on
party.
state bid.
On state bid.
It's very easy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that might be an option. August was a little bit of a slow month. People are away. I mean, not to make
Yeah.
excuses, but just some of the momentum is lost in August, so we'll pick up on it this month.
If I could, Commissioner, at the one meeting that Commissioner Margolis was at,
Yeah.
May did say, had spoken to Dell at that point, and she was awaiting a quote on a lease.
Okay.
Yeah, because the budget is due at the end of the month.
Yeah. Well,
So we only have until the end of September to put something in the budget.
what
for
would you need?
hardware.
What would you need from the technology committee or from the police department in order to have a formal submission to the budget? I'm
No,
not.
I'll talk to May,
Okay.
okay?
Well, did we
I
decide?
had run into her.
I thought, because I thought we weren't going to put it in their budget, because that's what we had originally
In the
done,
pol-
right?
in the police
In the
budget.
police budget, it was a
Right, are we talking about the
separate
town
item,
budget?
No,
right?
we're not. I just want the information
Okay.
available while I'm working on the budget, which clearly I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing prior to the end of September, because it's due by the end of September.
Okay, the only thing that I want to add is I'm going to be out of the country for the last week and a half, so if I can,
Of September?
from the 20th until the 29th, so I could convey whatever information I have either to Ira or if somebody else wants to, just sort of help put it together so it could get submitted, because I've only got a week before I'm
Yeah,
off.
we'll
I'll call
figure it
May.
out.
I'll call May myself.
Okay.
It's okay.
All right.
All right.
You had some
Yeah.
stuff too, right?
I sat down with Deputy Sergeant Casey and the chief to try to come up with savings that this new system will generate. Been hearing a lot, saying people that this is just a system to find out that the village uses all of our resources and we need to know how much money, and that's baloney. We know including the people that say it's not so. We know how much the village uses our resources. We had that information until the program blew. And it's factual. We these people who have no concept of how this works, again, are just making statements. They've accused people in the town council of misinforming about the use, and it's just not true. And I will use my same example, and I'm going to use this because it's an example of how we can save, and it's a tough figure to come up with because it's an intangible. Let's say there's a fight at a bar. That's considered one call. Remember that. Same as a lockout in the town is considered one call. A lockout in the town takes 2.5 seconds for the officer to take care of. A bar fight takes a long time. Now, these officers have to go back to the station. Let's say there's 4 of them, and if you look at the statistics, usually at a bar fight or the bar, it's not one officer, it's 3 or 4 officers in cars and this, that, and the other thing. The idea is, let's look at the situation, which is what I've come up with, and I can't get a dollar cost to it. There's 4 officers. 4 officers have to enter information into the system. It's got to go all over the place. Officer 1 gets on the system. Takes him, just going to use an example, 15 minutes to enter what he has to enter. Meanwhile, 3 officers are sitting in that office waiting their turn to get in. Because only one officer right now can go into the system at a time.
Why does every officer
No,
have
you
to...
can only one officer can be in the case file at
Right,
a
that's
time.
into the...
But if 4 people are handling the same case, why can't one person become the leader and write up the case that they were all on it, and it connects to all of them, so that only one person has to write it up?
Do you want to
The
answer that?
problem-
Legally, you can't do that. You
Yeah.
have to, every officer has to file a report for what they do. When you go to a scene, you're filing your report, your narrative on the actions that you take, the observations you make. I cannot testify in court to something you do or see, and that's the importance of it. So whenever we have a case, and the officers that are involved write some sort of document, some sort of narrative. It may not, you may do less because you may have had just a supplemental role, and I may be more involved in the case, and so my narrative would be longer. But you would have to, we want you to document a narrative because the case or the call for service indicates you were involved. If that call for service or if that case goes to trial, the defense attorney is going to ask, what role did Officer Y play? What role did Officer X play? And we have to have that information documented.
So everybody goes back and then waits in line to get into the system to put in their own personal...
Right. Which is why a call doesn't necessarily mean a call.
And when you look at the saving, again, it's a hard thing to come up with. Officer A is 15 minutes at X amount of cost. Officer 2 is now a half hour because he had to wait there. Meanwhile, Officer 1 can now leave. Officer 2 is still waiting. Officer 3, and you just keep extending. Now, for the people who want, these officers sitting in front of the houses or whatever, getting these officers back into the street is worth a lot. We're looking at the kind of stuff, and it's like, it's an intangible. It's hard to, there's a lot of that little intricate stuff that's going to save a lot of money. The fact that dispatchers can use voice recognition, all right, you know what that's going to save? That they can handle more than one call at a time. All of this stuff is part of this new system. It's not a thing, as these people have been saying, to get the village. Or the bar owners, or whatever. It's to improve the system, make it a better system, and have the officers back on the street a lot faster. Like I said, forgetting that they want to sit in front of their house, but at least they're on a weekend, they're back on the street to do what they have to do. And that's an important fact to remember. Number 2, the cost. And I know, Gene, we're going to get in, but if the amounts of money that the police department brings in through, like it works for the state, it gets the reimbursement, it gets ticket, all the money that it generates. The police department generates a certain amount of money that goes into the general budget, that goes into the pool or the field, or attorneys. That's if you look at the last transfers, attorneys or professionals, whatever. Yeah, it's going to cost money. But I want everybody to understand it's not going to be because of the police department spending more than they were allocated. It's because the money that would have reduced the police cost, or shown as a reduction in police cost, is shown as a reduction to attorneys or professional fees or whatever. Yeah, it's going to cost money, but it's not something that's going to say, oh, well, wait a minute, our police budget just went up. No, our police budget will stay the same as it was. It's just that the other piece of people who have gone over budget, unlike the $162,000, are going to have to take responsibility for what they do, as opposed to riding on the backs of the police department. And again, it's going to cost the taxpayers money, but just like you say, it's where it's coming from.
There's going to be a terrific return on the investment, I think, over the
Absolutely.
short term even.
Like I said, I wish there was some better way to quantify. When I sat down with the chief and detective sergeant, it's a very, very difficult thing to quantify, because there's so many, gee, what happens if this guy, what happens if, the guy in the end goes home and then comes back, the guy in the fourth thing,
It's not that difficult for me. I mean,
I'm not, yeah.
Case file reason alone indicates to me how antiquated their existing system is, okay? And really, the example you gave of the 3 officers, to me, that's a waste of my resources,
Yeah,
okay?
it is.
Gee,
So,
you understand
I am
it.
only one, Ira.
I know, you understand it, and I appreciate the fact that you understand how this stuff works.
Okay.
But the people who I gotta keep.
No, you need to
Remember what I
stop.
say.
You need to stop talking like that, because really, the goal, the intent of the software is not, the intent of the software upgrade is not to get the village.
Exactly.
Okay, the intent of the software upgrade is to improve the efficiency within the police department.
Absolutely.
Who is working on an outdated system.
Absolutely, and that was the point that I wanted to bring up, because
Right.
all of this nonsense that's going back and forth.
Because people talk nonsense.
And
Well, it's-
all I'm saying,
it's
if you
very
got a
similar.
question, come to us. We've got the answers, and the people who don't want to believe it, we've got the documentation also, if anybody wants to see it.
But it's also, it also points to the length of time that it took us to do some of the stuff that we needed with respect to Park Point, or even generating these reports that we get for us every month. Somebody's taken out to, generate this report manually each month. And that's an officer or somebody, who to do that. And I think that this new software is going to allow them to just spit it out, collect the data, and it's there, and they can manipulate it any way that they want, push a button, and out it comes. So it's a lot less, it needs a lot less human touch to it, which is a good thing, because they're instead of spending their time giving us data, they can push a button, walk out the door, and
Absolutely.
go get it, and they can be on.
A lot of the reports have gotten better, or you have problems with it because they're transfer reports. They go into an Excel program and they push the wrong key or whatever, and all of a sudden the report doesn't add. And unless you actually go into the detail, you're looking at a report that, oh, that looks good, until you go into the detail and you say, oh, wait a minute, they added a 0 to this report. It kind of changes the whole average around,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Any other
That's it.
questions? Do you have a liaison report? Do you got anything you want to share? No? Okay. Old business, PBA status, as Susan mentioned when she was here. We had the first meeting on the 6th, was it? Yeah, the 6th. And, everybody talked about what they needed and what we were going to focus on. And I guess they'll be planning another meeting sometime in the future. I don't know if they haven't notified anybody yet, or at least I haven't.
Well, we did, Jeff and I were actually able to meet with our outside agent. So we reached out for more information and tried to get something put together so that we can bring it to the table.
Table, got it. Okay. Any
Moving right
questions?
along.
Moving right along. Any announcements?
I have an announcement. I wanted to thank the supervisor, the chief, and also Mary Ann Tazi for helping and volunteering and making sure that we had a crossing guard at the middle school when school started. It was really up in the air until the very last minute, and because of these 3 people, we really made it happen. And I just wanted to say, I think this is a great example of our leadership, our chief and citizens getting together and actually doing things and improving the quality of life and keeping our children safe. And I just wanted to thank all 3 of them.
Very good. Great. Very good.
Is that going to be permanent, or is that just?
They're working on it, staying permanent. May not be exactly what it is now, but it might be some type of permutation of that. And hopefully, what they plan is that it will continue.
Great.
That's good.
Great. Other matters? Did you?
I ain't got any other matters. Why are you looking at me?
We will recess until
Hopefully
8:15.
8:15.
I know.
I apologize, I didn't know how long the
Apology
meeting
not
was going.
accepted.
I didn't know how long the meeting was going to run, so I told the interview to start around 8:30, so I
Maybe they'll
apologize.
come a
Yeah,
little
you
bit
should
earlier or
look at
something.
the agenda. So
I
that
had
y'all
actually made
can
the
see.
phone call before,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, so
All right.
It's not so
So-
bad.
we'll
be
recess
worse.
until
Get to enjoy each other's company.
8:15.
Yes.
And then we'll come back.
It's going to be, when we come back, it's going to be an executive session.
Yeah.
It has to do with
What's the Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
hiring, firing, the whole.
I forgot.
Just one
I know, I
thing.
don't know.
Huh?
Yeah, so we're,
I always forget it.
I think we'll go into recess till 8:15, and then I guess you're gonna have to hang out too, and, I mean, you can go get some pizza or something.
Why does he have to hang out?
Yeah, what do we need?
Because we're gonna come out of recess and then we have to go into executive session, and
Yeah.
that's still public part of the meeting, right?
You know,
I mean, we can go into executive session now and just hang out until,
yeah, and with the, I mean, why?
well, yeah, I mean, that's fine with
can't
me.
even-
That's fine with me.
I don't think you need to count.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, that's what I was, that's what
Okay.
I was thinking. Why-
So the chair will entertain a
I
motion to
make a
go into
motion, we go
executive.
into the executive session for the purpose of hiring, firing, and whatever
Personnel,
else.
whatever. Is
Number
there a
6.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, this way we got,
Randall, you know what the Wi-Fi
at least
password is
somebody
for
could
you?
get home early.
I'm not going to let this down.
OPN meeting, I think.
Oh, okay.
OPN meeting.